China, having some of the world's strictest censorship rules, is known for making changes to some of the handful of foreign films they approve for distribution each year. And this time, their new version of the cult classic movie Fight Club has fans talking, and I'm one of them. Spoilers for Fight Club ahead, though the movie is over 20 years old by now, so it's your own fault if you haven't seen it. In the closing of the original movie, the narrator kills off his imaginary alter ego, Tyler Durden, and then watches multiple buildings explode, suggesting his character's anarchist, anti-capitalist plan to bring down modern civilization has begun.
But in this new version released in China, the narrator still proceeds to kill off Durden, but the exploding building scene is replaced with a black screen and a coda that says, quote, "The police rapidly figure out the whole plan and arrested all criminals, successfully preventing the bomb from exploding." It is not currently clear if government censors in China ordered this alternative ending or if the original movie's producers made the changes. And look, this is what I've always said is the real problem with China, minus I think we always get really distracted when it comes to China, and I don't agree with a lot of the discussion that demonizes China and a lot of the things that we often point to, the typical dog and pony show that the U.S. does, which is always point the finger and say you guys are an abusive, terrible, brutal regime. The real risk for me when it comes to China is this sort of thing. Their censorship, their control of their population, their surveillance of their population, and how China's increasing influence around the world, buying up industries. They own, legendary entertainment, AMC theaters, a lot of different sectors, finance and medicine. They own a lot, they're invested in a lot, and they're able to use their influence. We see this all the time in like the NBA. They're using their influence to change our culture, to change our style of governance in this country. That and around the world, that to me is the biggest threat that's never talked about, because ultimately the government would love nothing more but to be able to do what China does and how they control and surveil their population. And this is just one of those, we're marching towards the one narrative nation with all of we got to stop misinformation and we've got to stop hate speech and things that are bad. And this is China doing it. And this is where we're headed if we don't watch it.
I agree with that, completely agree with everything you just said. However, I just have to say, this is very weird, but their new ending is kind of good.
What do you mean kind of good?
No. So I've read the book. It's been a long time, but the book, Fight Club book, more suggests that he's a crazy person. He's hallucinating an alter ego. In the book, it's more clear that he's going crazy and might be imagining that he's become the leader of this anarchist movement. So it's actually much more plausible that he's just caught and then goes to an asylum or something. It's sort of a brain, messing with your brain in a way that I think might be better. Look, I love the film. So I'm a big fan of the film. I was a big fan of the film. I think it's interesting how the film has predicted actually some of the populist political undercurrents we have. It's very much a dude movie. It's about the frustrations of men who don't feel masculine enough and are dissatisfied with consumer culture and their jobs, and so they have to start punching each other, and then their plan is to blow up the banks. It's this confluence of sort of right-wing traditional masculinity stuff and then a left-wing anti-capitalist stuff. But anyway, then he blows up the buildings, and it's set to "Where Is My Mind," this great song by the Pixies, and it's a really great ending. But I kind of like the Chinese one. He's just caught, goes to jail.
Hilarious. So
the propaganda has worked on Robby.
No, it's not that because I like the propaganda. I just think it's a weirdly good choice.
So Kim, I a little bit disagree with you very respectfully, because I do think that China does deserve even much more censure than we're giving them. We have so much economic leverage that we don't use to combat, the really devastating human rights abuses. However, to me, when I see stories like this, and I think about how much hysteria there is in America around cancel culture, and it's look, there's a country that's actually canceling people at the end of a gun, right? There's a country that's actually using state power to change culture. And whatever's happening in America, I'm not a fan of the overreach, of the woke overreach, God knows. But, it really is every person can say no to it in America because there's no real state power on the other side of it. It's just popularity contests on Twitter that make these decisions. And nobody who's been canceled is struggling to feed their families here, certainly is not in a detention center. So I think that, these stories really help me to moderate my critiques of our own culture because it's so different than what's happening in China.
Right. In China, the government changed the ending of this film. Our government doesn't do that. Now, we have problems with, Disney just decided, I think, that they're going to, or whatever, they because of criticism of the new Snow White movie, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, they had criticism from Peter Dinklage, and then they put out some statement, and maybe they're going to re-envision these dwarves. And his criticism was totally wrong. Like, it's not those representations are meant to not to stigmatize people who have dwarfism. Like, dwarfs come from German mythology, right? They were not even envisioned as like shorter statured until like Tolkien mainstreamed that, and then like the Dungeons and Dragons world made that they weren't different in stature from elves actually I think they're very tall in like the Thor mythology. So it's like. And he's an expert, in some fantasy stuff, but I know more on this.
I agreed with Peter Dinklage on that. I actually thought, I don't know if they should be like, are they going to be casting a bunch of people and with dwarfism, and then. Yeah, I didn't feel good about that, and the whole idea that there's like 7 of them living in a cave. I agreed with him.
Well, they shouldn't cast people with dwarfism, but they do like in the Lord of the Rings movies. Gimli, the person who plays Gimli, is the tallest person on the entire set, and they just shot him. I mean, the left has to decide how they feel about this. Like, no, does everyone? You can't have someone who's not of that identity play that character, or
I just don't know if they need them to be.
You lose either way with these people. With these people being the left.
I just don't know if the 7 dwarfs need to be actual dwarfs, like 7 dwarfs. I don't know if there needs to be like.
Right, they don't need to be short, but they don't need to not be called dwarves, is what I'm saying.
Right, they don't need to be. Okay, I mean, I'm sure there's something there that we can. I'm sure Disney's figuring it out. I'm sure the movie's going to be great. I'm going to like it. I'm going to like it a lot.
It's not my favorite in the Disney canon. It's a little.
Coming back to China, Disney, which famously shot Mulan in Xinjiang, right, where the Uyghurs are being detained and there's a genocide underway. And so I think that the culture in America is terrible right now because it's under the influence of like woke culture and woke demands. Like you have to be the right race or the right gender in order to play somebody. But it's sort of terrible in China because the government is enforcing it in a certain way for certain ends, and I think that it's important to keep those distinctions, especially because we do have the power to say no here in a way that a lot of Chinese people don't. But Kim, I think you disagree with me on this, no?
I do, yeah. I mean, and also just to AP did do an on-the-ground report in the Xinjiang region, and they did say that the re-education centers have been closed down, and that they've been closed down for a while. So I know that there's still this sort of, so whether or not we agree on what was actually going on over there, even if we disagree, I'm not sure why we're still talking about it. If AP on-the-ground reporting says they're not even existing anymore, so it's over. Everybody should just say, okay, thank God it's over. If you believe that that's what was going on, it's gone, it's over. But so I really do think, though, that the bigger issue with China that we want to point to all these other things as a distraction is just this: the control, the power, the censorship, them buying up every single industry we've got, investing in every single industry we have, and then controlling those industries, and then marching us towards this way of, I like being a free people. I understand that maybe democracy is slow. Maybe it means that we've got some issues and we can't clamp down on a virus the same way China maybe did or didn't. I don't know if we can really trust, what they claim when it comes to it. But, so what? I like my freedom. I think this is the way to go. And I don't want the world transitioning into this new sort of one narrative nation, got to stop misinformation, got to make sure people don't see bad, harmful things, at the end of movies, even though Robby apparently loves it. So
it was just an interesting idea in this one case.
Maybe they weren't trying to censor. Maybe they just agreed with you, Robby, and they thought this ending's crap. Let's change it.
Yeah. All right. Well, the first rule of Fight Club is you're not supposed to talk about Fight Club, but we just did. So we should probably get out of here. We'll be back with more Rising right after this.